Welcome, dear listener, to a journey that may shift the way you see yourself and the world. Take a moment, breathe, let go of any distractions. Now, ask yourself, if there is no self, then who becomes enlightened? This question is more than just a philosophical puzzle. It challenges the very foundation of how we understand life, identity, and freedom. We live with a deep-rooted sense of I, a belief that we are a solid, unchanging entity navigating the world. From childhood, we are told who we are, our name, our background, our personality, and over time, this identity becomes so ingrained that we rarely question it. But what if this I is not as real as we think? What if the thing we hold onto so tightly, this sense of self, is just an illusion, a flickering image that constantly changes? Buddhism teaches that what we call the self is nothing more than a collection of experiences, thoughts, and emotions, constantly arising and fading away. Like waves in the ocean, they come and go, yet we mistake them for something permanent. But when we look deeper, we begin to see that there is no fixed center, no solid I that exists independently. This realization is at the heart of awakening. Enlightenment is not about a person achieving something. It is about seeing through the illusion that there was ever a separate self to begin with. It is like waking up from a dream. The dream may have felt real, but once you wake up, you see it for what it was. Just passing images, just thoughts. So if there is no self, who attains enlightenment? The answer is simple: no one. Because enlightenment is not a prize to be won, not a destination to reach. It is the recognition that what we are searching for has always been here, beneath the layers of illusion, beneath the stories we tell ourselves. When this understanding takes root, something shifts. We no longer live in constant fear of protecting an identity that doesn't truly exist. We become more open, more compassionate, more present. We stop clinging to the idea of me and mine, and in doing so, we discover a freedom that is vast and boundless. So, dear listener, as you sit here, as you listen to these words, pause for a moment. Notice your thoughts. Notice the space between them. Observe the mind without identifying with it. Who is watching? Who is listening? If you search for a solid I, you won't find it. And yet, awareness is here. This presence, this stillness, it is not yours. And yet it is you. True freedom is not about holding on, but about letting go. And when we let go of the illusion of self, what remains is something vast, peaceful, and free. Stay with this question. Explore it. Don't rush for an answer. Let it unfold naturally. And as you move through life, may this understanding bring you closer to wisdom, to peace, and to the deep, unshakable truth of what it means to be human. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to reflect. And if you'd like to continue this journey, join us here on Buddhism Podcast for more insights into the path of awakening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And may you find the clarity and peace that has always been within you. Let's begin with a simple but profound question. Who are you? Are you your thoughts? The voice in your head that never seems to stop? Are you your emotions? The waves of happiness, sadness, anger, and love that come and go? Are you your memories? The past experiences that shaped you, the stories you tell yourself about who you are? Take a moment and really consider this, because everything we associate with the self, our thoughts, emotions, and memories, is always changing. They rise and fall, come and go, never staying the same. Yet, we cling to this ever-shifting experience and call it me. The Buddha taught that this idea of a fixed, permanent self is an illusion. It is a mental construct, something we create in our minds and then spend our lives defending and protecting. And this illusion is the very source of suffering. Imagine a river. From a distance, it looks like a solid, continuous thing. But if you step closer, you see that it is nothing more than a flow of water, always moving, always changing. No single drop stays in place. It is never the same from one moment to the next. Our minds, our sense of self, work the same way. Thoughts arise and pass. Emotions surge and fade. The body itself is constantly changing, aging, evolving. And yet we hold on to the belief that there is a fixed I behind it all, some unchanging essence that is experiencing life. But where is this I? Can you find it? Can you point to it? Buddhism explains this illusion through the 5 aggregates, the 5 components that make up what we call a self. 1. Form, the physical body, the material aspect of existence. 2. Feeling, sensations, pleasure and pain, joy and discomfort. 3. Perception, the way we recognize and label experiences. 4. Mental formations, thoughts, intentions, habits and emotions. Consciousness, awareness, the knowing of experience itself. These 5 aggregates interact, creating the appearance of a solid, unified self. But in truth, none of them exist independently. They are just processes, constantly arising, changing, and fading. Yet, we identify with them. We cling to them as me and mine. And this clinging is what leads to craving, fear, and suffering. Think about it. How much of your daily stress comes from defending an identity, from trying to be someone, prove something, protect an image? We suffer because we believe there is something real to protect. But what if there isn't? The moment we see through this illusion, something shifts. We begin to experience life differently. We loosen our grip. We stop clinging. We stop suffering. We realize that we are not a fixed entity moving through time. We are a flow, like the river. And when we let go of the need to define ourselves, we become free. So, ask yourself again, who are you? If you look deeply, you may find that you are not a thing, not a name, not a story. You are simply this moment, this experience, this awareness, limitless, ever-changing, and free. This is the heart of Buddhist wisdom, and when truly understood, it transforms the way we see ourselves, others, and the entire world. If this resonates with you, stay with it, explore it. And if you want to go deeper, join us on this journey here at Buddhism Podcast, where we uncover the truths that set us free. This question is one that many struggle with. We have spent our entire lives believing in a separate I, a thinker behind the thoughts, a doer behind the actions, a self moving through time. So, when we hear that enlightenment is about seeing through the illusion of self, it can feel confusing. If there is no one here, then who wakes up? But perhaps we are looking at this the wrong way. Think of a flower. A flower does not force itself to bloom. It does not wake up one morning and decide, today I will open my petals. It simply blooms when the conditions are right, when there is enough sunlight, water, and nourishment. The blooming is not something separate from these conditions. It is the natural result of them coming together. Enlightenment is the same. It is not something that a self attains, because there is no separate self to begin with. Instead, it is the natural unfolding of wisdom when ignorance fades. The Buddha explained this through dependent origination, the understanding that everything arises due to conditions. Nothing exists independently. Nothing comes into being by itself. The self we believe in is not a separate, fixed entity. It is just a collection of conditions coming together in each moment. Consider a storm. A storm does not appear out of nowhere. It is formed by changing weather patterns, shifting temperatures, wind currents, pressure systems. When those conditions align, the storm arises. And when those conditions change, the storm dissolves. In the same way, awakening is not something we do. It is something that happens when wisdom replaces delusion. When we stop clinging to the false idea of a separate self, suffering naturally dissolves, and what remains is something vast, peaceful, and free. So the question is not who is enlightened. The better question is, What conditions allow awakening to happen? When we cultivate mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion, we create the conditions for suffering to end. When we stop identifying with every thought, every emotion, every passing desire, we begin to see clearly. The more we let go, the more we realize that we were never bound to begin with. And when this illusion of self fades, what emerges is something beyond words, a deep, effortless freedom, not something we achieve, not something we own, but something that has always been here, waiting to be recognized. So, take a breath, look around, feel this moment as it is, without trying to grasp it or define it. There is nothing you need to become, nothing you need to achieve. Just let go, just be. Because enlightenment is not about finding something new. It is about waking up to what has always been. If this resonates with you, stay with it, reflect on it, and if you want to continue this journey, join us here at Buddhism Podcast, where we explore the truths that set us free. Let's do something practical. Take a moment, close your eyes if you want, breathe, and just watch your mind. Thoughts are constantly appearing and disappearing, aren't they? They come and go like waves on the ocean, rising, cresting, and fading away. Some thoughts are loud, some are quiet. Some feel urgent, some pass unnoticed. But if you really pay attention, you'll notice something incredible. You don't control them. They just happen. Thoughts appear on their own, without you deciding what will come next. You don't sit down and choose your next thought. It simply arises out of nowhere, stays for a moment, and then fades. And another follows, and another, endlessly unfolding. This is the beginning of wisdom, the realization that thoughts are not you. For most of our lives, we assume that there is a thinker behind the thoughts, a me generating and controlling them. But when you really observe, you see the truth. There is no thinker, only thinking happening. There is no separate self behind it all, just the flow of mental activity, constantly changing. And the moment you recognize this, something shifts. You are no longer lost in thought, you are watching them. A space opens up. A sense of clarity arises. Instead of being trapped in every worry, every desire, every mental story, you begin to see them for what they really are. Just passing phenomena, just energy moving through the mind. This is why mindfulness is so powerful. It allows you to step back, to see reality as it is, rather than through the lens of ego. When you observe your thoughts without grasping at them, without identifying with them, you experience something rare, freedom from the constant mental noise. Try it now. Just watch. Notice how thoughts come and go. Who is watching? If you look deeply, you won't find a solid self behind it all. Just awareness, open and clear. This awareness is not something you create. It is not something you achieve. It is already here. Beneath the noise, beneath the ever-changing mental landscape, there is a stillness, a presence that is untouched. This is the doorway to awakening. Not something distant or mystical, but something incredibly simple. Seeing clearly, recognizing that you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not the passing waves of experience. You are the awareness that sees it all. And when you live from this place, when you stop clinging to the illusion of self, suffering naturally begins to dissolve. The worries, the fears, the endless mental struggles lose their grip. What remains is peace. What remains is clarity. What remains is freedom. So take this practice with you. Watch your mind throughout the day. Observe without attachment and see for yourself. The more you let go, the more space there is for truth to emerge. If this resonates with you, keep exploring, keep questioning, and if you want to go deeper, join us here at Buddhism Podcast, where we uncover the wisdom that leads to true liberation. Have you ever had a moment where you completely disappeared? A moment where time stopped and there was no you thinking, no mind analyzing, just the experience itself? Maybe it was watching the ocean waves crash endlessly, listening to music that moved through you, or getting lost in the eyes of someone you love. That feeling, that quiet, boundless awareness, is a glimpse of what Buddhist teachings call no self. Most of us live as if we are a fixed identity, a solid, unchanging me. But is this self real? Or is it just a collection of thoughts, memories, and labels that we've mistaken for something permanent? The Buddha taught that what we call the self is just an illusion, like a dream. And just like a dream, the moment you wake up, you realize it was never real. The mind constantly builds a story. I am this, I am that. It clings to experiences, attaching to pleasure and avoiding pain. But when we look deeper, we see that there's no solid I behind any of it. The thoughts come and go. Emotions rise and fade. Even the body is constantly changing, cell by cell, moment by moment. So, who are we? We are not the voice in our heads. We are not the emotions that pass through us. We are the awareness itself, open, empty, vast. But this awareness belongs to no one. To experience this truth is not about believing in a concept. It's about direct realization. When the self disappears, what remains is peace, clarity, and deep compassion, because without the illusion of separation, we see that we are not apart from anything. We are the trees, the wind, the stars, the strangers we pass on the street. This is what enlightenment points to, not an escape from life, but waking up to the reality that we were never separate to begin with. Who are you when you stop searching? There's a deep irony in the search for enlightenment. The more you chase it, the further away it seems. Why? Because the very act of seeking assumes there is a separate self that needs to attain something. But what if enlightenment was never something to achieve? What if it was simply the absence of illusion? The Buddha never described enlightenment as a goal, a prize, or a destination. He didn't say, go out and get it. Instead, he spoke of the falling away of ignorance, like clouds dissolving to reveal the sky that was always there. Imagine standing in a dark room, searching for a way to fight the darkness. You wave your hands, push against the air, struggle to get rid of it, but nothing works. Then, you simply light a candle, and instantly, the darkness disappears. This is how awakening happens. It's not about force or effort. It's about seeing clearly. When the mind is no longer clouded by illusion, suffering falls away naturally. But here's the challenge. We are deeply conditioned to believe in a self that needs fixing, improving, evolving. This illusion of a separate I keeps us running in circles, always reaching for something just out of grasp. But what if there's nothing to reach for? What if the peace, the freedom, the stillness you seek is already here? Not in the future, not after years of meditation, not in another lifetime, but right now. The truth is simple. The self that suffers, that wants, that searches, was never real to begin with. It's like a shadow. You can chase it, but it will always move away. The moment you stop running, stop grasping, and simply look, everything becomes clear. Enlightenment is not about becoming something new. It's about realizing what has always been. The light has never been missing. You only need to open your eyes. What happens when you stop searching? If there is no self, how do we live? Do we just stop functioning, drifting through life with no purpose? Absolutely not. In fact, life becomes lighter, more effortless, more alive. When we stop clinging to the illusion of a separate I, something profound happens. We move through the world with ease, no longer weighed down by the constant struggle of trying to protect, improve, or prove ourselves. Everything flows naturally, kindness, compassion, love, not because we force it, but because there's no longer a rigid ego blocking the way. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack for years, believing it was part of you. Then one day, you realize you can simply put it down. The weight disappears. You don't lose anything real. You gain freedom. This is what it means to let go of the false self. It's not about withdrawing from life. It's not about indifference. It's about detachment from illusion. The illusion that we are separate, that we must fight, compete, or defend an identity that was never real. And when that illusion dissolves, something beautiful happens. Connection deepens. We no longer see others as threats or as tools to fulfill our desires. We see them as they truly are, reflections of the same awareness, the same life flowing through all of us. We act, we work, we love, we create, not because we need validation, not because we are chasing something, but simply because it is the natural expression of being alive. Life doesn't stop. It becomes more vivid. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. The smallest moments, wind on your skin, the laughter of a child, the warmth of sunlight, are enough. So how do we live without a self? We live fully. We live freely. We live without resistance. What would life feel like if you stopped clinging? And now we arrive at the most important part. Enlightenment isn't about becoming something new. It's not about transforming yourself into a wiser, better, more awakened version of you. It's about realizing that you were never bound to begin with. From the very start, the prison was an illusion. The chains never existed. The door was never locked. The Buddha's final teaching was simple. Be diligent, keep practicing, keep observing. But here's the key. There's no you practicing. There is only practice. There's no you becoming enlightened. There is only enlightenment revealing itself when the layers of illusion fall away. Think of the sun, hidden behind the clouds. Does the sun need to achieve brightness? No. It was never missing. It was only obscured. The moment the clouds dissolve, the light shines effortlessly. This is the path, not a journey towards something outside of you, but the gradual dissolving of everything that is false. So, I leave you with this question. What happens when you stop believing in the self? When you stop clinging to an identity, stop defining yourself by stories, stop grasping for something more? Perhaps you don't need to find enlightenment. Perhaps it has been here all along, waiting, silent, present. Thank you for walking this path, for questioning, for exploring. The search may end, but the awakening never does. Keep looking, keep seeing, and most importantly, keep waking up.